I was born in South Korea, but I was adopted as a very tiny carryable baby, so I actually wasn't raised in Asian culture, but it was an interesting experience to go back and sort of see what things would have been like if I had, and also to see the difference, right? Because I was raised in the States, and I know that there's just a huge culture difference in terms of like feeling comfortable about doing things like self-advocating and self-promoting. So I sort of consider myself fortunate to have been raised in the United States, where I was always encouraged by my very liberal mother to speak up for myself and to really go for whatever it was that I wanted to do. I also have 3 older brothers, which was a torturous childhood, but it makes you really comfortable with sticking up for yourself, because if you don't reach first to grab the dinner, right, then your 3 brothers eat it all, right? Or, you know, like whenever we had snacks, my brothers would just take a lot of it because they were bigger than me and faster than me. So I had sort of a really interesting childhood that led me to where I'm standing right now. It's a little bit nervous. Okay, so to go back to self-advocacy, right? So self-advocacy it's promoting an idea. It's promoting yourself. It's really like standing up for your ideas. The thing that I really like to emphasize about self-advocacy is what it's not first, right? So I'm actually hoping that none of you have had this experience at work, but self-advocacy is not about having to defend your work, right? It's not about having to justify what you're doing in your job. It's not the same as being selfish, right? It's actually, so it's not being selfish, it's not being a team player, and it's certainly not climbing over other people to get ahead, right? So self-advocacy is promoting your ideas in a way that will actually help your team, right? So if everybody's a stronger individual contributor, if everybody's able to express their own ideas very well, then that actually does help the team. And I really like to make that distinction, because I think a lot of people think marketing and promotion is kind of a selfish thing, and actually it's not, because sort of that whole like weakest link, right? So you want to make all of your weakest links much stronger, and it makes the team work better. So that's my little thing there. So now that's what self-advocacy isn't, right? Selfish, one-sided, whatever. So self-advocacy is really the act of like, you are your own cause, right? So if you have an idea that you think is going to really help your team, whether it's going against the grain, right, or like, you know, keeping in flow with what's happening, it's being able to feel confident in presenting your ideas, whether it's to your manager in a one-on-one or whether it's within the team environment, right? And again, this is really all working towards a greater, stronger team. So, but you are the cause, right? So you come up with an idea, you really like to present it to your team. And by the way, self-advocacy also goes outside of work. Like, we're talking about it within the work environment, but you know, I don't know if anyone's in a serious relationship. Sometimes you have to like express your ideas and sort of back up your desires, right? Even in a friendship, right? Like maybe you want to go to Brazil, but your friend wants to go to Cape Town, right? Like you have to sort of navigate that as well. So self-advocacy is like speaking up on your own behalf and pleading your case, right? So it's not just saying, hey, I have this idea, I think we should do it, right? It's like building the case, and it's like building a pitch that is going to be very acceptable and very reasonable to present to the right audience, okay? And so we're actually going to go through an exercise to help you build your pitch regardless of what it is. So you actually might want to sort of in the back of your head, you thinking about something that you want to advocate for at work, right? Like maybe it's a vacation, maybe you feel like you really deserve to go away to Maui for 2 weeks, and how can you present that to your manager and your team in a way that's going to, everybody's going to feel like you're getting like the same benefit, right? Maybe it's like working from home, right? Maybe you want to work from home on Mondays and Fridays, and you know, your manager is going to push back and say, well, that's not really possible, you have to be here. So it's presenting any sort of thing, right? Okay? And then just in general, speaking up for yourself. So if you didn't grow up in a household where you had 3 older brothers beating you up all the time, maybe you you need some extra practice and just feeling comfortable presenting your own ideas and like standing up for yourself. So my very limited experience living in South Korea was that just observing it's not always very comfortable or natural in Asian culture to stand up for yourself or to like bring attention to yourself, right? So there's a lot of like the American workplace, as I'm sure you all know, it's different, right? It can be very, it can seem kind of aggressive. It can seem very too self-promoting, right? But in English we have that expression, squeaky wheel gets the grease. Have you guys ever heard that? It's like very, very, very true, right? So for some people it's not necessarily natural to raise your hand or to like volunteer something. So self-advocacy is just practice doing that. And the more that you do something, practice makes perfect, right? But practice also makes permanent. So we want to make sure that you're learning how to set up your pitch and how to advocate for yourself in the right way, right? Okay. So somebody told me that it's really good to ask questions in a presentation. That person's back there in the room. So can anybody give me any examples of things that you've had to advocate for and like on your team or in a work situation? This is really just a test to see if you are awake. Anyone? Yeah.
All right. So I can give some examples of the advantage of self-advocacy.
Yeah.
I was a product marketing manager for high-tech companies,
Okay.
and later I became the realtor. And now everybody knows that's a wall, bidding wall. So
Yep.
how to win the offer to be accepted.
Yep.
That's very important. So I deal with so because of my background, so it makes it easy for me to negotiate with listing agents.
Yep.
And because most listing agents are, Americans, and so they are looking for some buying agents who can communicate well.
Yep.
And so my advantage is that I can communicate with them well, and most of the time they would like to help me. So they tell me, the price, the fee, how high could it go. So that is very important.
Yes, negotiation is a huge part of self-advocacy,
And
right?
communication helps.
Yeah, that's great. That's a perfect.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. There are no bad ideas or bad situations, right? So, yeah.
Could this be like if you want to get a promotion or something like that too?
Sure, that's actually a great example. Getting a promotion, like what do you have to do to get a promotion? You have to, first of all, bring up the idea, and then second of all, come up with the supportive materials. So yeah, and then you have to be able to present that to your boss or to your manager or to whoever makes that decision. Yeah, that's a great example.
My company actually just had a hackathon that where everybody presents their own idea and then promotes their idea and then recruit team members.
Yep. That's great. That's a perfect example of it, right? What about you?
Recently went to get a driving license,
Oh yeah?
and when I got to the DMV's office, I was told that I need to have a person who's accompanying me, who is a California licensed driver over the age of 25.
Okay.
I already had a driving license from my home country, and I had to argue with the DMV representative, proving to him that I could come in on my own and do the driving test as per the California driver handbook.
Yep.
It took me at least 5 minutes to get my transit wheel test.
And do you have a license now?
I do have a license now.
That's good. If anybody needs a ride home, he's got it.
But at first, he rejected me straight away.
Yep.
And then I managed to convince him to call his supervisor, which he did. And then she said, yeah, I can go ahead and get the test.
That's great. That's really great. So one thing I actually would like to point out is there are words, right, that people associate with certain feelings. The word argue is generally not a word that people think of as being nice, right? You don't get into arguments with friends, or if you do, it's sort of pitting each other or against each other, right? So the word that I would use for you is actually not arguing with someone, but having to justify or to validate maybe your discussion. Or your, what's the word I'm looking for? What's that?
Your point, your argument.
Yeah, your point, right? Yeah, you want to support your points. And I know that that's actually kind of a silly thing to bring up, but language is really, really important. right? And that's what makes learning a language so difficult, right? It's not just a translation from one to, I'm so not picking on you, please. No, but it is, self-advocacy isn't arguing. It's actually just validating and supporting your point, right? Supporting your, whatever it is that you're trying to advocate for. So, I mean, but great, seriously, that's awesome. Okay. So in the work environment, so that's obviously a great example of non-work, thank you. But in the work environment, self-advocacy can look like things like proposing a new project, right? It can be speaking up in meetings, right? So how many of you feel really comfortable going and raising your hand in every single team meeting that you're in? Nice. You? What about the rest of you? Yeah? So for the people who don't feel comfortable raising their hand or bringing up ideas in team meetings, what's stopping you?
I have a lot of strong personalities on my team.
Okay.
So even though I don't think of myself as shy, they are just very overwhelming.
Okay.
I was going to say confidence in your answer and your argument.
Okay. Those are both, by the way, very, very, very real, very common.
I was worried about my English.
Okay. What are you worried about? You're speaking? Yeah, I mean, that's legitimate, right? I mean, by the way, that's actually what we do. This isn't a plug for the company, but we do a lot of work with people making sure that they have the right language so that they feel confident, right? So they're sort of building blocks, right? If you're not confident in your language, then you won't be confident and you'll be less likely to go up against like the people who are super loud and aggressive on your team, right? So that makes sense. So, like Tracy suggested as well, a promotion, right? These are things that you advocate for, like maybe you're an individual contributor and you want to be a lead. Maybe you want to go to Maui for 2 weeks. I bring that up because I did it. It was great. In fact, by the way, I forgot to mention this. This is actually not my material. We have another coach named Mia. She's fantastic. She actually did this content, and I took the class from her. I have a really strong personality, and some people think that I'm a little bit too strong at times, but it was great to take her course because she basically helped me take my very strong personality and make sure that I was presenting it in a way that wouldn't be offensive or that would sort of make sense, right? So I forgot to give her credit at the beginning of the thing, but so she actually helped me put together a supportive argument for going to Maui for 2 weeks, right? By the way, the water's great there. I recommend it. So promotion or a raise or a vacation, working from home, right? I don't know, maybe even bringing your child or your dog to work. Seems like kind of a weird thing to bring up for self-advocacy, but it does, right? Anything that you want to be doing is that falls under that category. So, are there? So why is self-advocacy important? Does anybody want to give me some suggestions before they read that up on the screen? I know, I did it too late. You're already looking. So really the reason that self-advocacy is important is because it does help you to be able to put your thoughts into an organized way so it can be delivered and be understood, hopefully accepted, right? So self-advocacy is good for teams because I don't have all of the answers and all of my ideas aren't good, but that's the point of working in a team, right? So when you have teams and you have individual team members who feel really comfortable and feel like able to express their ideas, then that actually makes the team stronger, right? That's sort of the point of working with people as opposed to just working on your own. So self-advocacy increases workplace satisfaction and influence, right? So if you actually feel like you're being heard, you're happier, right? Like, who's had a manager who honestly didn't seem to care at all about your opinion? Can't just be me, right? I've had a lot of them. Okay? So when you feel like you're being listened to, right? And the best way to be listened to is to make sure that when you're talking, that you're actually talking about things in a way that people can accept and digest and at least hear, right? They don't necessarily have to agree with you, but at least hear. Because everybody also knows that person on the team who does raise their hand too often and doesn't make any sense, right? Or maybe brings up a point that's not related at all. Maybe not. Okay. Workplace satisfaction's increase, build better team workplace communication. Optics. This is one of those like unfortunate things that you have to think about, right? Optics are really important. Does anybody know what optics are, by the way? Because I recently learned. Perception. Yeah, like outward impressions, right? Outward perception. So optics are things that you do that fall unfortunately under the category of like being political, right? I personally admit to sending emails from work at like 11 o'clock. Maybe I'll be at home working on a project and nobody actually knows that I'm doing that, but maybe like I'll send an email about something so somebody actually kind of does notice. Once in a while I work till 11 o'clock. I don't do it in a way that's crazy over showy or anything, but like I do actually want my manager and my team to know that I care about things and that I'm willing to put in the time, right? So self-advocacy is actually good for optics also, for anybody who wants to be a manager or anybody who wants to like lead teams, because the best way, the best qualities in a leader are people who are willing to like stand up and support themselves, people who are willing to support other people on the team, right? Those are the best managers, not the ones who are just kind of in it for the power and the money, but the ones who actually care about supporting their team, helping them grow, right? So it's sort of modeling good behavior, and supporting yourself is great modeling, great behavior to be modeled, right? Okay. And then demonstrating a desire to advance. That's right. Just, if you want the promotion, you have to ask for it. Can't just assume that everybody's gonna like just know, oh hey, she looks like she wants a promotion, or hey, he looks like he wants some more money. Nobody's ever gonna say that to you, right? No one's ever gonna say, hey, today, just gonna give you an extra title, give you some extra vacation, and how about some more money? And if that is your situation, I'd like to work at your company, so you should pull me aside after.
What's an IC?
Individual contributor. I thought that was the one acronym I could get away without explaining in this room. I'm so sorry, that was my mistake. Yeah, individual contributor.
As it turns
Okay,
out, all
so-
the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it, and it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple.
Hey, has anybody seen Simon speak or read any of his books? Yeah, he has a book called like Leaders Eat Last. He's a great speaker and a really intelligent man. So first of all, is anybody familiar with the golden circle that he just explained? You are, Stephen. Can you see that in Spanish?
Yes.
Anyone else? Does anybody have any thoughts on like what he just said in terms of presenting a point or building support around a point? Yeah,
So
go
I just
ahead.
wanted, I just learned this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had a professor explain it, so that's why. But it kind of ties into like when someone asks you, you're at like a networking event, people ask you, what do you do or how do you do it? And to make a stronger impact, you talk about why, for example, why are you an engineer? Instead of saying, what do you do as an engineer, right? So, if you're an engineer, I like building things and making an impact in the world, and then I do that by, writing code or something. So it's just, it makes it a much stronger point than saying, oh, I'm a software engineer.
Exactly. Does that make sense? Right? So like his point, is it really that bad? It was bad, huh? Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, this whole like people they care about why you do something, not what you do, right? So Apple makes great products. They're not really, honestly, that much better. I mean, I'm an Apple person, but that's because I don't want to have to set passwords on everything that I own. I just plug it into my phone and then I go. But the idea that they're selling you why they do something, they're selling you like the passion behind what they do, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay? So, yeah, do you remember those old McDonald's ads? Does anybody remember the quack, quack, waddle, waddle ad? It was adorable, right? It's this little boy. It's got his voice over the ad, and he's at camp, and they show him, like, he's wearing his cute little yellow raincoat, and he's, like, having a great time at camp, but then he's kind of homesick, right? So then the camp counselor ends up taking all the campers to McDonald's, and they all have a great time. They're probably all obese by now, but the point is that it's all about emotion, right? So, but to answer your question, yes, if everybody starts doing that, then Simon will probably come up with another thing to do, right? So there's trends, right? There's trends in advertising, there's trends in a lot of stuff. So I don't know, I do think that people are interested in like somebody's passion, right? Let's say you go on a date and someone just says, oh yeah, I live in Campbell, California, I'm a software engineer, I drive, this kind of car, whatever. I mean, I guess, yeah, okay. But like if they were to say, oh my God, so I'm totally driven by, I love to kite surf. It basically fuels my entire life. I'm energized by it. I love nature. Like I have to do that, right? That's sort of what keeps me alive and keeps me going. And the way that I do that is, I work for a software company, and I make like really decent money because those kites are kind of expensive, right? And I need to take trips to Hawaii and Cape Town and Brazil and whatever, right? And, that's a lot more interesting of a potential date, right? Again, if anyone knows anybody like that, I'm here. No, so, just to review though, right? Because this is actually, we're working our way towards the exercise here. So, why something does it, or why you do something. What is your passion? Like, what is it that wakes you up in the morning and makes you want to do what it is that you do, right? I'm sort of jumping around here, right? But this wakes you up in the morning. This is the result of what you do during the day, and this is how you do it, right? Maybe you work really, really hard because whatever. So, what we're going to do now is we're actually all going to practice a pitch. So let me actually tell you my own personal recent pitch, and then to give you an example or an idea, maybe a pitch you want to work on for yourself, right? So, working remotely is not really an issue. A lot of companies let you do it, right? And by the way, you can take as many pictures as you want, but you actually can also get a copy of the thing. I should have told people that, sorry. So I like to work from home, a couple days a week because I work like 40 minutes away from my apartment. It's kind of nice. I actually work longer hours and I am more efficient when I work from home because I don't have to get up and like get on the subway and like walk to Dumbo, whatever. So, but it's hard to ask your manager if you can work from home because a lot of people really feel like FaceTime is really important. Most people say that it isn't, but they kind of think it is, right? So I came up with this idea. I wanted to work from home for 2 days a week. So what I did, just to backtrack here, so this is what I want to do. I want to work from home a couple days a week. But I can't just say that to my manager because if I say that, she'll say, oh, no, we don't do that. You actually need to be here for the meetings, right? So if I start out with the what, I can easily be shut down, right? So what I did instead, thanks to Mia, is I started out with the why, right? So for example, I love the company that I work for. I am actually a coach. I have an ESL background, and I really, really like what we do as a company. And by the way, I'm not just saying that because I taught ESL way before I ever started working for this company, right? So I love what we do, and I love being able to help people be better communicators, whether that's with their friends, whether that's at their job, whether that's literally the difference between them getting a promotion because of communication issues or not, right? So I love that. It's great. In order for me to do a good job at communications, right, I need some quiet time. I need some time, like, when you're writing, distractions distract you, right? So in order for me to be able to be at my best, I do need some solitude. I need some distraction-free time, and I need, like, my brain to be in creative mode, right? Because creativity you can't turn on and turn off, right? So you actually have to sort of create the environment that is going to be more conducive or most conducive to being creative. So the way that I'm going to do that is I would like to work from home Monday and Friday. So much harder to shut me down if I say that, right? Because I love the mission of the company. What manager is going to say, who cares? So I kind of suck them in by that, right? I pull them in and I say, what we do is great. It's amazing. I care so much about it. The way that I can do my best is by creating this environment, by making sure that I'm creative and happy and, can like be at my most productive. And the way that I'm going to do that is the what. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're going to do now is talk about your pitch, right? Your pitch has basically like these 5 things to consider. You need structure. I've already given you the structure, right? The how, or the why, how, what. That's the actual structure of your pitch, right? This is just a reminder. Obviously, you want to be confident and you need to know your audience, right? If you're talking to a manager who loves remote work, really tries to do it a lot, it's easier to like talk to them about what you want, like in the example of working remotely. But you just need to make sure that you're considering who you're talking to. If you work in a big team and there's a lot of meetings, you need to make sure that you tell your manager in your pitch, like, don't worry, I will definitely be available for all the meetings. I'll call in, I'll use Blue Jeans, I'll use Skype, I'll do whatever, right? So I'll definitely be present. You need to make sure that the person that you're pitching is aware that it's not just about you, that you understand how you function and where you fit into the team, and you're not going to cause any disruptions, right? And then be prepared and be specific. This is kind of an obvious one, right? Like, you can't go into any situation and just wing it. You can, but it's not going to be as successful, right? Believe me, I've tried it. So you want to like literally go into your one-on-one with your manager if you're asking for something, and it's okay to have things written down. And nobody ever thinks that you're dumb because you come in with notes. I mean, I'm like crazy impressed by waiters who can take my order and not write it down. Like, those people always get big tips, right? Because that's actually a pretty big skill. But if you're going in to talk with your manager about something, it's totally legitimate and good for you to have points written out so that you don't forget them, because sometimes, believe it or not, I get like crazy nervous and forget stuff. I've forgotten a lot of points that I was going to bring up today, by the way. So, but I wouldn't have if I had notes in front of me, right? I put them down, actually. And then be specific, right? If you're going to ask for something, like, don't just say someday it'd be good to have that, right? Like, you would say, hey, in my case, So I'm gonna make sure that I go to all of the meetings, I'll call in, it won't be an issue, I'll never, I'll be completely available, even if I'm not physically in the office. And I'd like to start doing this next month. Or I'd like to start doing this next quarter, right? Because if you don't give somebody an idea, if you don't ask them for like a start date, it's super easy for them to not ever do it, right? That makes sense, okay? And then vocabulary. So I think if you talk to somebody and they say, well, yeah, I kind of had this idea, I was thinking, like, I don't know. I mean, like, it seems like a good one, so I was thinking maybe I could work from home a couple days, right? But if I said to you, so I've been thinking about it, I'm able to make sure that I can be available to the team, I'm definitely able to get my work done, it won't be an issue to have me working remotely. Kind of an extreme example to make a point, right? But so you want to take out words like, this woman, Mia, she calls them word whiskers, but they basically, every time you use filler words, it actually deletes or dilutes your message, right? So you always want to use the right language and you always want to be really clear because it's just, you come off better. It's sort of the equivalent of if I got up here and I was wearing, scrappy clothes, my hair was a mess, maybe I smelled, like I'm going to be less enjoyable to be around, but I'm also going to have less of an impact on you, right? Because I have to present myself in a very appropriate way, right? The same thing with your pitch or conversations that you have with your manager or even your teammates. You don't want to use all these filler words because then they actually start to focus on the filler words. And this might just be me because I teach English, but when somebody's talking to me and they use the word like every other word, I just stop listening. Because I think, oh, God, really? So, I just use that word. And then this social conventions, this is just a thing, right, to keep in mind. If you come from a culture where women are not necessarily taken as seriously, or if you come from a culture where men have more pressure, or where it's appropriate to speak up, or where it's not appropriate to speak up, you sort of have to keep that in mind, and you have to make sure that your social conventions that you were raised with, to the best of your ability, don't hinder the current workplace that you're in, right? So maybe you were raised in a very nice, polite family where you don't, grab food first off the table when it's placed down there, but then maybe you come to my house for dinner, and if you don't do that, then you don't eat, right? So it's sort of the same thing. You need to think about the workplace that you're in right now and make sure that you're doing a good job of representing yourself and kind of following appropriate behavior, if that makes sense. Okay? Right, so I think that what we're going to do now is Tracy's going to help me. We're actually going to work on a pitch. And it doesn't have to be something crazy important, but I personally learn better if I have to go through. Do you want one of these now? Okay. I'm not buying insurance though, so you don't have to do my this is just a good practice for you to get used to putting any sort of points that you're trying to support or trying to promote or whatever to get it through. So I honestly think that, and generally speaking, this is something that most people have to work on, is a little bit more why, right? So maybe your why is, you know what, I love what I do. I feel like the company is a great environment. I love working on my team. I love working with other teams. I love seeing things come together and to result in whatever. The way that I am able to see that or do that is, the cross-functional work that I do in teams and kind of all of that, right? So I think it's great. I just would add a little bit more why at the beginning. Class?
I don't want to make a pitch. I have a question.
Yeah.
What to do if what you're pitching is actually good, but you fail?
Again.
Do it successfully, but you still want to implement it. Do you wait and then come back with it a few months later? How do you approach it?
Well, so that's a great question, right? Did everybody hear him? Right? What do you do if you're rejected, right? Or you're not rejected, sorry. Right? So I think that most salespeople, because there's a lot of sales skills, right, in self-advocacy, promoting. So the thing to do is ask why. So great, I'm proposing this. I think it would be good for the team. I think it would be good for the company. I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. If you're a manager, the person says no, then say, okay, well, why? Is it a timing issue? Is it a capacity issue? Is it like whatever? And then when they tell you why, then you can say, okay, great. If it's a timing thing, then I'm gonna put it in my calendar to come back and talk to you later or at another time and be specific about that time, right? When should I talk to you about this again? If it's a financial issue, then you can say, okay, well, great. What can we do to get over that? Is there some way we can like finances are tough, right? But like, is there some way that we can find the budget for it in another place, right? That's not being used, or can that be, So it's all about like finding out why it's not accepted, and then going from there. Does that make sense? Is that vague enough?
That's good.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions, by the way? Because I'm already creeping into Tracy's time. Did anybody feel like this was a good exercise, or kind of give you some nice structure when you're going forward? Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Super.